towards all three of you guys, I wanted to ask a question that's been on my mind for a while regarding league and esports in general.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
one thing that happens and why esport works is whenever a team plays, there's value created. Like there's sponsorship, there's eyeballs. But for me, the true value is when a game is played and it's watched, users are developing an emotional connection with the game, the story, the teams, and this turns into prolonged interest in the game and also microtransactions. So like the old theory was NBA fans are worth like $300, $400 a year per fan, and then a League of Legends fan hopefully will be worth that much. But in reality, they don't spend on the esport part as much. Like what can you do? How many jerseys can you buy a year, and what else can you spend on teams? Like there's subscription models now like Cloud9 Stratus, Liquid Plus, but it's actually the microtransactions that are happening in game. The longer you play League, the more likely you are to spend on skins and other cosmetics. So if there is value created, Riot is capturing almost all the value,
Yes.
and there's so little value that is being captured by the teams and the players themselves. So that's why esport works for the developers, and developers get massively rich. It's not just off the franchise spots, but off the prolonged interest coming from players. So I think where esport is kind of getting fucked right now is the actual operators themselves. Well, there's no real tourney organizers now. It's the developers doing it, but the teams and the players and the sponsors, they don't capture the value, or they don't capture anywhere close to the real value, and it's so asymmetric. And they're dependent on the developers to feed them the cash. And was curious where you guys.
Not only is it asymmetric, not only is it asymmetric, Loco, but the problem is that nobody has any idea how much the publishers are making, right? It's not just like, oh, we can tell that they're taking 75% of the money. We have no idea, right? There's a world where they're making 90% of the money. There's a world where they're making 10% of the money. There's a world where they're losing money, and this is a vanity project that probably should be killed, right? You know what I mean? In terms of an actual business. Now, I don't think that's the case, because why would every publisher want to push these esports programs? Why would Riot, do a big esports program for Valorant if the League of Legends one was failing? Like, it doesn't make any sense logically why they would do that. So they must be making some amount of money. But yeah, you're totally right. And that's the problem, is that a lot of the money in the ecosystem, we will never know what that money is, right? So it's hard for us to make any kind of judgment call. It's just a giant fucking mystery.
Yeah, so I think what's really interesting is you can take a look back on StarCraft. So in StarCraft, Blizzard was hands off StarCraft 1 Brood War era. And what can they do? Like, there's a limited amount of Brood War CDs you could sell, like the Battle Chest. And they actually don't make that much, because all the PC banks, they just have like 40 copies each, and it's downloaded, so they're not selling additional copies. People don't really play StarCraft at home. They go to PC banks and play it. So they ran their league and the tournaments very tightly, based on sponsors and making sure there was viewership there and in-person attendance. So I'm curious, in the world where Riot or LCS runs almost kind of independently, and it is not dependent on the value capture that is happening on the microtransaction side, what LCS looks like what the sponsorships look like, what the value of fan to team relationship, fan to player relationship looks like. Because right now, LCS can be run very loosely, right? And long as it is capturing some mindshare, it is worthwhile for Riot.
What do you think, LS? What do you all think on this topic?
I agree with what Loco is saying, right? I mean, it's why, like, right now, we have the whole debacle going on with NACL, right? With the strike and everything. And I made my reaction to it, which was turned into a clip, which isn't like a proper video, which is that, like, the whole reason that NACL went under is because it doesn't produce anything. And it has all this funding, and it doesn't have any attention to it. And it's really weird that there's this massive outcry for this thing that went under. And I made like this analogy that there's like this store in the middle of this city, and all these taxpayer dollars are just endlessly going to it. And this store is like this research center, and it's supposed to produce something that is supposed to be like positive for like the city, and it never does. It almost like never does. And all this taxpayer money just keeps bleeding into it, and nothing comes out of it. logically, the city would not want that store to keep existing or that research facility to keep existing. Or if they do, they want it to exist in a smaller capacity. Obviously, there's not ways to monetize this type of stuff because these people that are claiming that there's this outcry or that they care about LCS or they care about NACL, they don't actually care because there's no clear monetary support. They don't support the players. The players stream, they have no viewers. The players tweet, now fucking Twitter, thanks to Elon Musk, we can see how many views their tweets get. Okay, their views get sub 2,000 views, right? They have no impressions on their fucking tweets. They all have, some of them don't even bother tweeting, right? They have no following. They post a YouTube video. The team posts a YouTube video, sub 1,000 views. So I totally agree with what Locodoco's saying, and that there is no monetization on the esports angle, and everything that is happening right now is dependent on the developer. And if you see some of the pushes that the owners and other people are making towards Riot is that they want in-game cosmetics to then be sold, but that's not even targeting the esports audience. That's hoping to target the casuals. Like the casual person who plays ARAMs and normals that doesn't even care about esports, that think, oh, that looks nice, I'm going to buy that. And it doesn't matter that they don't give a shit about T1 or, Gen.G or FlyQuest or Golden Guardians or C9 or Fnatic or G2. All they have to do is think that logo looks cool or that skin looks cool or that cosmetic, whatever it is, and it supports the team. That's all that they need to care about. And that's the angle that it seems like the teams want to go for.
Well, I think it's because, but here's the thing. I think it's because the teams have been cut out of the central form of revenue of esports, which has been the microtransactions. Outside of winning worlds and getting a cut of those skins, which is a very significant sum of money, they haven't been able to get the benefits of the marketing exercise. And I think it's disingenuous because here's the thing. All of us come from OG esports, right? We fondly remember the days of OGN in Brood War and in the early days of League of Legends when that was an entertainment product and it was successful on its own. We know that there was 15 years of Brood War where Blizzard absolutely fucking hated the fact that OGN was running this tournament. Right. And OGN wasn't doing it with money from Blizzard, and they weren't paying money to Blizzard. It was just a pirated league, basically, that was existing in Korea. And yet they made a profit from it because it was an entertainment product first, and the sponsors wanted to sign on, and the fan base was, fanatical, and it was a functional business, right? In the way that a sports league is a functional business. Here's the problem, guys. When Riot comes around and they say, no pay-per-view, this is a marketing product for our game first, which, by the way, has been, in the league that Riot has had the most, that Riot HQ has had the most control over, which is LCS in North America, because they are the closest to LCS. It has been a massive failure in taking the brands that were developed in the early days, so the early TSMs, the early CLGs, and translating that success and the level of fanaticism that people had for the players and teams into the modern era. It hasn't carried over. Viewership continues to drop, et cetera, et cetera. So right now, I think it's completely reasonable that the teams are like, we haven't gotten a share of this marketing exercise, and you made a bad entertainment product. LCS was fucking badly made as something to attract people to the players, attract people to the teams. It's getting better now, but is it too late? And all of their success was due to the fact of things that happened before LCS started. It was the Reginald era TSM. It was the Hotshot era, CLG. It was the Cutie Pie era Dignitas, right? And so Riot inherited all of the work that the players and the teams did with the brands, fucked it up, and now the teams are like, well, can we have some of that marketing money because you changed it from an entertainment product into a marketing product? I think it's reasonable.
So the real winners became actually the influencers, like Skara going to offline, creating houses like that. So there's definite interest for online personalities.
LS has fucking made a whole enormous career off it. He's been the most successful of any of us, mate.
Yeah.
Like Monte mentioned, there's so much good NA personalities that Riot inherited. And then they're like, oh, we want to be more sporty. We want things to look like NFL, NBA, instead of this grassroots, influencer, rough around the edges. And yeah, the product didn't
Dude,
turn out.
Loco, you know something funny? People won't know this, but the reason why you even told me you wanted to do the Shawless and Loco is because you were a big fan of like fucking Undisputed with like Shannon Sharp and Skip Bayless, and you saw that like if that sort of thing existed, because if people don't know, the topics almost don't matter on those shows. You watch for the personality and like the banter and the back and forth. Yep. Like essentially, to me, I've always said the same thing on Summoning Insight. The biggest failure of LCS is this: how many fucking American people who have fire personalities aren't on the LCS broadcast? Like, there's a world where if they'd have asked at the right time, LS here might have been on the LCS broadcast. You could be on it, Loco. Dom would have been on it. Fucking if Monte wanted to, he could be. You know what I mean? Like, they could have had the most insane talent lineup ever. So that even if the games were shit or the teams weren't that great, you could have had so much fun, so many skits, so many fucking iconic moments. There's so many things I think you could have done with that. Like, it could have been just a media product on its own.
Right, but
yeah, the level of product dropped, and then like the best streamers like LS went to more LCK focused content. Dom went to more LPL focused content. So even like the home region broadcasters with personalities are not living within your broadcast. Like they're going elsewhere. So no hate to the current cast, but it's kind of bland, kind of dry.
Yeah, often on the current cast, I don't really get the blood running through my veins, and he's going, you know, it doesn't always happen, you know. I miss a dragon here or there. I was watching that movie recently, How to Train Your Dragon. You know, I sent it along, but I don't know if she got to it yet. But let's go and say, give me your thoughts on this.
I don't know. I was gonna act. I was gonna. Fuck! Oh my god! I just blanked. Oh my god!
We're talking about the broadcast, like the fact there could be all the NA personalities that you could have been on there.
Riot doesn't like when talent starts getting to influencer level.
Of course not.
They really don't
when talents are getting huge and they're still loyal to your show and you're taking care of them and they have other opportunities, they should be bringing eyeballs back to the broadcast as long as they're treated well. Why not?
I mean, why do you think they treated me the way I did? The way they did, Loco? Like, I was a hugely popular caster. I didn't work for them. I worked for OGN. I had the most popular podcast, like secondary content. Remember when they did Primetime League and they were spending like hundreds of thousands of dollars an episode for this full studio, and Summoning Insight with webcams was smashing their viewership? And then I owned an LCS team. I was by far the most dangerous person outside of Riot because I didn't work for them outside of international events. I had my podcast where I got to say and criticize them however much I wanted. And now I owned a team in their ecosystem. Like, that was terrifying for them.
So LCK actually turned out really well. Like, they have huge personalities like Wolf. They have huge personalities like Cloud Templar, and they're all insular to the broadcast. Like, whenever they want Wolf for an international cast, he's there. I mean, Cloud Templar works full time for LCK. Yeah. I loved what that scene turned into in terms of all the big personalities grew. They do other shit other than League, but they're still very much insular, and it feels very collaborative, where in LCS, everyone's splintered off, where like, yeah, you either got cut off by Riot, or you went into different games, and only if you fit in certain criteria are you still working for LCS.
Here's the thing. Go on, Alice. Come on.
No, I was gonna say in Korea it does seem to operate a little bit differently. At least from like what I've known from like Riot Korean employees that have since like left the company, that have told me some of the inner workings of the hierarchies that exist within Riot Korea, and how certain things work. I think Riot Korea is its own entity, compared to like LCS, LEC, maybe even LPL. At least like from conversations with Dom, because LCK really does seem to care about the broadcast growth first and foremost. It almost seems to only care about that, which is why I think like they don't care about the only thing that I think that anyone could ever point to where Riot Korea has done something that doesn't make sense is like when Apto offered to like donate 100,000 to charity, right, to get unbanned, and they still said no. Like something like that. That's like really fucking weird. But I think that outside of that, there's no issues with like the influencers getting like really big, and Riot Korea just doesn't care. But I think
that's a great point regarding like Apto being distant from LCK. But outside of Apto, like everyone is so insular to the broadcast. Where on the OPS side, there's like an undying list of people that are Apto ostracized in LCK versus LCS.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the way. that just LCK operates, and I think that's how it should go. Like in general, right? So it's very bizarre because I think that this is also something that is like starting to change with co-streaming opening up, and like there's a change that's happening clearly with Riot probably in like the last year. I don't know like what's behind it, but I think that there are some directional changes that are starting to finally happen, but I don't know what I would point to. But yeah, I think the general idea is that Riot doesn't like influencers getting too large. The thing that I was going to mention right before Thorin started talking was there was an incident this was summer 2020, where I had 49,000 viewers, LCS like summer finals, something like that. And a few days after this ended up happening, I got a call from someone that works with the broadcast. And they told me that the viewership numbers caused a problem internally at one of the discussions at Riot, and that they weren't sure if co-streaming was going to still be like permitted, or that like the conversation was going to have to be revisited. Because
they accidentally opened Pandora's box, LS.
yeah. Because the narratives on all the different co-stream channels are different from the main broadcast. So this is obviously this is 3 years ago. So that was a really scary call for me, because it was in the middle. Like my whole life just took a total 180, right? During the co-streaming year. So I remember having lots of conversations and like trying to get to the root of that and wondering like what was going on there.
I mean, they have a different attitude in Valo. Like Tarek eclipses the main broadcast. And
that's also because they wouldn't have that many viewership if they didn't have people like Tarek and Shroud like that. Like they do like half the broadcast numbers if they all join. Anyway, here's what I was going to say, Loco, is I know obviously with the way it ended with Listen Loco, everyone was like disrespecting you, saying you didn't bring anything to the broadcast. Now you've come on it to get fucking C-SPAN. Like, well, actually, Monte, I'd like to talk about the economic realities of the League of Legends scene now. Broadcast rights are becoming a new frontier within the digital marketing space. Like, fucking, all right. See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.